Welcome back to the Man Cave, everybody, for episode 72 of the ManTFup Podcast. I'm Kimmy B.
And Lenny.
And before we go any further, I forgot to say it last time, so please like, subscribe, share, and follow absolutely any and everywhere. If something triggers you, if something makes you say, if something that we say you feel is wrong, which y'all love to point out any opportunity you get, and we're here for it, just drop it in the comments, all right? We definitely do read them, and we love to have your feedback. Now, with that being said, we're going to jump right in today. Lenny sent me a clip. He's got it on his phone. Go ahead and play it for him, Len.
You give up your right to defend yourself, what the fuck is going to happen? Go look at history. Go look at countries, people groups that give up their right to defend themselves. It does not go well. Those who become dependent on the government to feed them, to protect them, it does not go well. The United States got to becoming the biggest superpower in the world because it did not do that. But the problem is when you get to a certain level of affluence, you forget all that. And especially if you fell asleep during history, you forgot that that was even a thing in history. So all you're looking at is whatever the fucking issue is right in front of your face right now. You have an emotional response to it and you try to solve your right now problems in ways that may have much, much bigger problems down the road.
Do you have any background on this particular individual, or was this just something you came across on TikTok?
He's a motivational guy,
okay,
business guy. But, I tend to just listen to common sense, which, is difficult for most people. But, it's common sense. I mean, any country that's ever been conquered, they are then stripped of their ability to fight. So no matter what, you go back to the Middle Ages, you go back to England and Scotland and Ireland, they all get stripped of their stuff. I mean, you go look at England, the IRA, and the fight between Ireland and Great Britain England for, 100 years, 200 years? Because... And they had no other way to fight because their weapons were taken. Now, nobody has guns in England, which, except the army. Oh, look at that. I got a call. What a surprise. So, history shows that. When you get conquered, if people can't defend themselves.
But defend themselves in what way? Because as has been established repeatedly, and as is made known every opportunity that presents itself, American citizens' right to bear arms is protected in the Constitution, period.
Yes.
Right? That's the spot of much debate. It's one of the reasons why we don't go in and tinker with the Constitution at all, even with things completely unrelated to gun ownership, because people feel like if you open Pandora's box, you will not be able to put everything back in, right? Like, let's be honest. It's the reason why our Constitution, even though it is amendable, takes a lot to amend and has not been amended that frequently over the course of time. Right? We leave a lot to the states to decide how they want to interpret things, what they want to do. And if, it gets messy or people feel differently, then obviously it goes through the court system and it makes its way up to the Supreme Court. And then we go back to the Constitution. Everything kind of rolls itself back to the Constitution. But it's why I truly believe that is one of that and freedom of speech. Literally the First and Second Amendments are really why we don't go ripping apart and shredding up that very significant document and piece of America, right? It's really those two. Not to say everything else isn't important. Not to say it doesn't need to be looked at and revisited. Not to say there aren't some amendments that are definitely,
Yeah, I mean,
needed.
But they're seriously coming under attack.
They're pretty well protected, though, and I say that because of
to a certain extent.
Like
right now, the ATF is changing regulations on guns daily, which outlaws what people already have.
It's ironic that you would say that, though, because it kind of seems like a knee-jerk reaction. And I'm going to explain to you guys why I say that. Lenny and I, after he sent me this clip, of course, good old Google, good old... digging in, doing some research, trying to find, not only government sites, but also independent sites that have done research on gun ownership in America. And we found some numbers, but it was ironic that you mentioned the ATF because we came across a study. I was asking, how many guns are used in the commissioning of crimes in the U.S., right? And the ATF just released its first study, and you can't even call it that because it's completely inconclusive, in 20 years on the use of guns in the commissioning of crimes. Do y'all know what the ATF stands for? Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Yeah.
This is the government organization that is tasked with handling all things alcohol, tobacco, and firearm related. And this is the first study that they have actually gone in and done in 20 years. We've been having the gun debate for how long at this point?
Well, yeah, we have the gun debate because it's a political
I get it, but you would
rifling
think
point.
at some when
Yes, you would think it would be more. It would be more like the census.
Well, no, and we facts. Or why isn't
About
that
yearly?
Why
How
isn't that
about
on the
biannually?
census though? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to
Yeah,
talk
do you own
about
a
things
gun?
that are pertinent to Americans,
Some people are scared to say they own a gun. I think there's probably a lot of Americans that are in fear of saying they own a gun because they're in fear that's going to put them on some kind of list.
that's.
Just saying.
But when you register, so that means you don't own your guns legally. Because if you own your guns legally, you're already on the list, guys.
Well, in a lot of states, you don't have to register a firearm.
Like, no, handguns, I think, don't handguns almost always have to be registered? I know rifles are a little bit different because rifles are I mean... you
No,
can
they don't
gift a
always have
rifle
to be
somebody.
registered. And you can go into Walmart here. You could 10 years ago walk into Walmart here and buy a rifle off the shelf, without any, And no, but you buy them people buy them at the gun shows. In a lot of states,
But
there's
you just saying it like that to me is frightening because as a person who is pretty middle of the road when it comes to the gun issue, right? I don't want your guns. I want our kids to be safe in school, obviously. I don't think that banning guns, trying to take people's guns away is going to stop that from happening. I do not believe that if we were to say, oh, everybody turn your guns in, that violent gun-related crimes would stop happening. They're not going to. I'm a realist in this particular space, but I have a lot of friends like you who I think are extremely responsible gun owners, and I was always under the impression that, you needed a license in order to buy a weapon, that it needed to be registered. And so to me, if those are just basic checks and balances that aren't in play,
it's not illegal
that's
to
a
buy a
problem.
gun from your friend. It's not illegal.
But if
to
I
buy
don't if I don't have a license,
I bought a gun from a Hollywood cop.
but you also are a registered gun, you don't have a license
A license for what? You don't need a license to carry a gun in Florida.
anymore. You used to need a permit.
You need a
didn't you?
concealed weapons permit, but not to carry it in and out of your business, not to protect yourself.
Then I don't agree with that. I think that if you're going to own a weapon in this country, you should have 1,000%. You can't drive a car without a license.
I mean, you can't go to the gun store and buy a gun without
legally.
a 3-day
But to
waiting
you,
period. Or if you have your concealed weapons permit, you can walk in and buy a gun.
you say that very nonchalantly, and you're the same person that before we started this podcast looked at me and said, more people are killed in automobile accidents every year than are killed with guns or by gun violence.
No, that's not exactly what I said. I said more people are killed by drunk drivers than people by guns.
Well, okay, but that's an even more specific
Yeah.
tie-in. I'm just saying, in general. So but your whole response was, or your point was, are you going to take away all the cars? And it was like, well,
Yeah.
now you just sound
That's
crazy.
that's the general
but
argument.
but you are supposed to have a license, and I can take your license away if you kill somebody
Yes.
with a vehicle, and I can put your happy ass in jail if you were drunk when you did it.
Yeah.
Do you know what
Well,
I mean?
I would also venture to say that the majority of the violent crimes that are committed with guns are committed by people who own illegal guns. Mm-hmm. So, by that fact, they're not going to be registered or
Don't you
have a
think,
license
though,
to carry a gun.
You'd have less resistance from the anti-gun establishment if they felt that better records were being kept, or if they felt that guns weren't so easily accessible.
Yeah, maybe, but here's the thing. And this is a really, kind of dumb thing, if you take people's guns away, the only people who are going to have guns are criminals. Because criminals can get guns in many different ways. They can rob, they can break into someone's house and steal their gun.
But here's the deal, though. If that gun's registered, at least there's a trace back.
It still doesn't matter. It's still in a criminal's hand. Even if someone stole my gun and it's in my name, it's still, the criminal has it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's very difficult. You're not, the argument of making it harder for people to purchase guns legally, okay, because occasionally psychos
to be a gun owner, like with anything that you can harm other individuals.
There's two different things. There's nothing wrong with being responsible and registering your gun. When you purchase a new gun, you go in, you register it, you get your permit, it's registered, it's in your name. Fine. Nobody has a problem with that. Okay? But when you lump up the crazies who go in and buy a gun and use it for violence against the amount of gun violence that happens by guns that are on the street with criminals, it's two way different numbers.
Yeah.
Two way different numbers. So you're restricting the purchase based on probably a small percentage of guns that were bought legally and then used in a crime versus guns that were obtained illegally and used in a crime. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does. I just think that
you're not getting guns off the street.
I get it. I just think certain people that are anti-gun at this point, and again, I think you have a lot more people like me who aren't talking about take away everybody's everything. That's not what this is. But when you're looking at the commonalities in certain situations, it's like, how could this be avoided? Like if there's such similar patterns, especially when you're talking about, quote unquote mass shootings in schools and the red flags and the warning signs prior to, and the ways in which certain individuals went about purchasing the weapons that were then used to commission these crimes or in the act of these crimes or in carrying out these crimes. I think that's where the frustration lies. It's like, why can't we stop the dam? Like where's the fix for it? And so people just yell about
it's a very difficult fix. It goes back to, I mean, that one we talked about, where the kid was in the principal's office with the gun in his backpack, and his parents were there, and then they sent the kid back to class, and he shot several kids. That one, how can we fix that? It's an easy way to fix that. Clear backpacks. There's a lot of simple fixes to protect our children from getting in mass shootings than people are willing to accept. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's one of the real pushbacks right now is that the ATF is a government agency that is only supposed to enforce the law. Mm-hmm. They are now rewriting the law. They are now putting restrictions out, this is what the biggest problem people have, is the ATF is now writing policy on guns. So, and they're writing policies that are making people criminals. You automatically are a criminal. They're really.
Do you have an example of that though? It's very heavy language that you're using.
Yes.
It's very heavy language that this gentleman is using.
Bump stocks,
and I feel like that
outlawed. Pistol grips, they're outlawing them. Mm-hmm. They're.
Now the bump stock is what? Is that the addition that makes your gun able to carry more ammunition?
No, that's a clip. The bump stock makes it fire without. So
it turns it into like a semi-automatic weapon, or not?
No, a semi-automatic weapon is pretty much every like Glock or semi-automatic is a pistol that that slides.
But bump stocks are the things that are usually on like the
bump
AKs,
stocks is
right?
you can just hold the trigger and it just fires. Instead of pulling the trigger, it fires off of your shoulder.
Gotcha.
So it makes it more like an automatic weapon than a semi-automatic weapon.
Why would you need that?
It's just, and it was used, I think it was used in that Vegas shooting.
The guy in the hotel.
Yeah, the guy in the hotel. It's just, it's just because fully automatic weapons are outlawed. So this was a, and they're not outlawed. You just have to have a special license to have them.
But can we just have a moment of honesty though? Mm-hmm. 70 years ago, these weren't the weapons that people had in their personal armories.
Well, 70 years ago, most of them didn't exist. And the weapons that your grandfather had were World War II weapons, which were just as deadly and just as...
I mean, but you didn't see in most people's homes Al Capone's,
Tommy gun?
Yeah. How many, really and truthfully, how many non-criminals do you think just had a Tommy gun hanging out? How many farmers in Wyoming do you think had a Tommy gun hanging up in their shotgun closet?
No, I get it. But, a 30-06, you remember John Wayne movies where he had to cock the gun like this?
Mm-hmm.
That's a 30-06. That's an assault rifle round.
Mm-hmm.
It's a center fire rifle. It can do just as much damage, and you can fire a lot of rounds just like this.
Got to be a little more effective with that gun. Do you
Kimmy,
not have to know how to shoot it?
An M1 carbine, World War II gun. Same thing. It's got a clip.
But these are World War II. Where else was that gun being used?
People had them.
Lenny, the amount of people I know in South Florida with AKs, with assault style, but you're making my point for me. Like,
assault
this
style.
was not, people collected guns decades ago because they were collectors. They collected beautiful pistols.
Or they shot them.
Yeah, shotgun. I went to summer camp in New Hampshire. We had a riflery on premise. I learned how to, my mom, same thing. I was out there. I'm talking about live ammunition stacked up in one of them little wooden boards.
We used to have real, there was gun ranges here that had real.
Honey, that's not what I'm talking about. You teaching kids in summer camp.
That's what I did when I was a kid.
So I get that, but you're talking about going to a gun range. This was at a summer camp where you were horseback riding, canoeing, and we have riflery today.
I took archery in elementary school.
Okay, I didn't take it in elementary. No, we might have had it in elementary school. I knew I had it at summer camp for sure. My point is, this was a part of culture for sure. Boy Scouts learned how to fire weapons, of course.
So why is it a surprise to you that people have more guns now?
No. I'm not talking about more guns now. I'm talking about the kinds of guns. Having a rifle that you honestly use, a regular old, kids used to get BB guns and whatever, that you are honestly using to go out and to go hunting. We live in a different world. Like, obviously, weapons, ammunition, this is $1 billion, if not $1 trillion. I'm guaranteeing you it's $1 trillion industry. Again, this is clearly not my area of specialties. Specialty, I mean. But I think that from a person who's not into the gun culture in that way, right? I'm one of those that scratches my head. And I know we've had our good friend Kendra in here, and she's got everything. And her argument is like, hey, if he comes in with an AK, I better have one too.
That's right.
Again, and I'm not, I don't want to say that I'm not angry at that logic, but I'm also a big proponent, and I've said it a bunch of times on this podcast, training, understanding how to, I feel like you should have to acquire hours before you can own certain weapons. I feel like you should have to actually know how to use it. Because when you're talking about defending yourself, this guy right here, I guarantee you, we've been to the gun ranges.
No, there's a lot of people that can't.
You know how many fucking bullet holes are in the ceiling?
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Like, and you sit there and you go, how'd that happen? They'll be like, yo, you don't want to know. Just, what? People are reckless. I mean, we've had members of law enforcement, and this is not, I'm not even saying in Florida, but I know that stories have come out about members of law enforcement not actually being accurate or well equipped to fire their service.
Yeah, not everybody's Martin Riggs.
A lot of them are. But if you don't go to the range, if you don't practice something, you don't have a skill set for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so to me, I just feel
to get a concealed carry, you have to take a course.
But you no longer need that in this state. Well. So now anybody can carry any of this stuff. I don't know. I think that the level of frustration comes from, hanging your hat on a constitutional amendment that was put in long before we ever had the kind of situations that the other side argues with now,
I get it, but, to classify things as assault weapons because they hold more bullets. I mean, you're classifying pistols as assault weapons. Because based on bullets. That's not what makes an assault weapon. And that's not what kills people. People kill people. You know that. It is what it is.
But a gun helps them kill more people. Because again, most of these kids aren't,
I'll tell you this. Okay, limit the clip to 30 rounds, right? But the guy's got 10 clips. That's 300 rounds. It takes a split second to change the clip. It's not like they're not fixing problems, Kimmy. They're chipping away at people's rights to own something. They're not fixing fucking problems.
But has the legislation been passed? And I only say this because it's like we continue to have the same fight. So clearly they're not, because it's still up for grabs. Do you understand what I'm saying? So again,
no,
we're
but
not
they are.
really.
The ATF is now starting to limit stuff, and the
Yeah,
ATF.
but that's literally people are going to file injunctions. It's going.
It's going to go to the Supreme Court.
It's not. They're doing it, but it doesn't really count.
No.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's all
so
political.
again, it's smoke and fucking mirrors.
Yes.
So we're sitting here stressing each other out and becoming further and further divided as a nation over something that's actually not happening.
Well, I mean, the ATF is going door to door for people who have bought stuff in the past and demanding that they
turn it in,
or you're a criminal. Turn it in, or
again,
we're going to arrest you.
I can't debunk what Lenny's saying, or prove it. I'm just saying I don't
No,
have the
look,
backup.
you can look it up. It's out there. It's happening, and that's why people are in such an uproar. And it's again, it's all smoke and mirrors, like you said. You know, they're pushing buttons. They're gaining ground on our freedoms. They did it in 2001.
But this narrative, this gentleman's narrative, is what frightens me. And I say that because, Len, this whole kind of like, you know, this insightful rhetoric that he's going, a country that can't defend it, you know, people, and I'm like, that's cool. You want to defend us? Go join the fucking army.
Did we talk
Sign
about,
up for the military, but they're not doing that.
Did we
All
talk
they're
about,
doing is stockpiling weapons in their basements and in their bunkers.
Yeah. Did we talk about that German general? I mean, not German, the Russian general that was talking about scenarios during the Cold War and why the scenario of them invading the U.S. was never feasible?
Because every house had a gun.
Mm-hmm.
But here's my question. So if that's the case, would people be happy if the American government, the U.S. government, issued every American a weapon at the age of 18? But that was the only gun that you got. So the more people in your house, the more guns you have.
I think that would make more people happy.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Like if they said, listen, you have the right to bear arms, you have the right to protect yourself, you have the right to defend yourself, we're going to issue a United States of America issued weapon. Boom, here you go. That's your gun. Hold on to it. Don't lose it.
And that's great. But now, if you're going to give me a gun, why can't I own another gun?
But you
know, if I'm already allowed to have a gun, why can't I have two guns?
Here's the issue, but this is...
What if this one doesn't work?
This is the problem, though, on both sides of the argument. It's never enough. And that's the thing, I promise you.
Well, that's...
No, but Lenny, the more conversations
problem
we
is
have...
freedom.
No, the more conversations we have on this couch, though, you give somebody that freedom, and then they want more. And this is on every argument. It's on every debate. It's on every topic. It's on every point of contention. It's happening all over the world. Like, you come to the table to negotiate something. You think you found middle ground. Middle ground is never good enough. It's never good enough to make everybody happy.
No, nobody,
because then people feel
you're not
like
gonna make
I lost.
everybody happy.
If they're happy too, then I must have given up.
Yes.
You have a gun. You have a gun, your husband has a gun, your son has a gun, your daughter has a gun. If there's 12 of you, one of these old school Irish or Italian families, goddamn, you've got an entire arsenal.
Yeah, I get it.
And if you all stay in the same neighborhood on the same block, you're good.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I think that would probably make a lot of Americans happy. I think that would say, if you said, hey, you guys can own guns, we're going to train you how to use them. Every house, every person in America has a gun and knows how to use it. I think it would slow crime down. And you're allowed to use it.
Well, maybe that's
someone
the way
breaks into your house, we're going to blow you away. It's fine.
But again, having a weapon and knowing how to use it are two very, very different things. Hence the reason why in most of these wild drive-bys and mass shootings, it's never the person, rarely the intended target, that is the person that becomes a casualty of the situation, right? That's why it's so frustrating to so many people, because it's usually the wrong individual. I don't know if Americans would be as outraged if the quote-unquote right person was getting hit instead of the 6-year-old that was playing in the park or the grandmother who was crossing the street. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the part that outrages people. along with this other issue that is much bigger than I think even our forefathers could have seen, which is what is going on with mental health in this country. You know what I'm saying? And then the situation with, again, massacres happening. You know what I mean? At our schools, at our grocery stores, at our 4th of July parades, and things of that nature. To your point, you know, it's the what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it the gun? Is it the person? Is it the gun? It's a combination of both. It's a combination.
And what about the situation where that guy came out shooting in the mall and a citizen who had a gun,
and I love that
blew
a
him
citizen
away.
that knew what they were doing with a weapon. Again, here's the deal: that person had their concealed carry, like all of these things.
Yeah.
I feel like I know plenty of responsible gun owners. I told you I had never seen gun culture as prevalent until I came to Florida. Real talk. Like that's I'm from Massachusetts. You know, we might have started the, Revolutionary War, but that's, I feel like, where the line got drawn. I mean, and I'm sure, again, hunting rifles, yes. Summer camp for sure. But this whole like people having secret compartments, next to their driver's side seat with easy access, rigs underneath the seat if something goes left. I had never seen a situation where
Everybody had a
pretty much
gun.
every car that I was ever in had a gun. It just became kind of second nature. I remember my uncle had a gun in his car in Massachusetts. I had a handgun, but it was for deposits because we had a family business and he would do the late night deposit. But I remember like when the first time you ever see something like that, and he was going to deposit something, and I happened to be in the car, and I was like, "What is that?" And then you learn, don't go in the glove box, don't go, whatever. And that was again a much different time. Obviously, now there'd be plenty of people watching this going, "That's so irresponsible. You can't leave it." It is what it is. But
How
in
about
Florida,
you teach your kids about guns?
100%, 100%. But and I never, as a child, having taken riflery and gone through safety and everything else, never would I have pulled that weapon out of that glove box and waved it around and tried to play with it. Like that never crossed my mind. But like I said, I had never seen as prevalent a gun culture. I'd never shot a handgun until I came to Florida. There's ranges everywhere. There's ranges where you can bring your more beefed up, weapons. So again, it is very much kind of second nature here. And again, I have no intention of trying to take that away from it. That's not my jam. I just wish that we had a way of making sure that only the people, it's to me, and I know it's a right, and this is a very contentious thing that I'm about to say. I feel like it's a privilege, and I realize that it is a right. I realize that it is a constitutional right, and a lot of people will slide in the comments.
We
and point
have
that out.
constitutional rights that have parameters.
Mm-hmm.
So the fight is really over the parameters more than the rights. Because there's people way over here that are, no guns ever in the United States. And there's people over here that I want anything I want, period, when it comes to guns. The middle is really just fighting over the parameters of owning a gun. And they're attacking assault rifles. It's the argument, and this goes back to the division of this country right now, which is where everybody in this country has a button. Everyone, whether it be Roe v. Wade, whether it be racism, whether it be gun control, whether it be, everybody has a button. And as long as those people are not willing to compromise on that particular button, there will never be a middle.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
right
it's never
now.
going to happen.
And again, that just keeps becoming more and more the constant with absolutely everything. And that is a frustrating space to exist in, because how do you progress? How do you make anything better? And again, you have rhetoric like that, which I think is very, very inflammatory. This, what the fuck is next? A country that can't defend itself. But again, we have this
People
power
that can't defend themselves.
No, but it says, but a nation that can't defend itself. He was using all of those words, and I get that. But it's like, we don't live in an anarchist society, at least not yet. And I don't ever want to live in that space, but we have this military that used to be the mightiest in the world. right? And people now seem to be more concerned with the arsenal they have in their home than they are with the prowess, abilities, and global respect of our military.
Because after so many years of, people are realizing that, like I constantly tell you, nobody wants to fix a problem. So if there's solutions out there that aren't that difficult, and our elected officials aren't taking steps, or our community leaders aren't taking steps to fix these problems, then people are scared. People are scared in this country that they would have to use them in a civil war situation, and people are scared in this country that, we're being sold out in parcels to the rest of the world. So it's a fear on one side, again, just like there's a fear on the other.
You're fearful of that, but then you let them get guns willy-nilly. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if anybody can, that's the other issue. So if you're so concerned about these outside factions coming in, which interesting conversation that we should have on another podcast. Did you see, I think Mississippi or Arkansas just made a Chinese company give back their American-owned land, or their land? They just made them forfeit. Whatever. So just that goes to what you're saying. But if you're so concerned, then you would think you would be a little bit more stringent on the parameters with which you allowed guns to be bought, sold, dealt, whatever, because that means that all of these outside factions have the same easy access to weapons here. You know what I mean? That we do. And as you're having this conversation with me, and I'm picturing, like, it's all fun and games that you have a well-stocked arsenal until your opponent rolls through and
they have a bigger stocked arsenal.
And now all of your shit belongs to them.
It's funny you mentioned the anarchy thing. And one thing that I saw recently is that they expect, if we had a complete blackout in this country, that within 3 weeks society would collapse.
Yeah, you've talked about that.
3 weeks.
There's a really good book. It's called
That's barely long enough to load all my clips. Because that's what it would boil down to, very quickly.
But it would boil down to that very quickly because, again, the disparity of wealth is so great in this country. The haves and the have-nots are so far apart.
Yes.
And we are no longer, a nation of...
We're no longer all Americans.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We don't... Again, because we've seen it. We saw it in New York, and it was really very close to 9/11. So I think it was a very different time in that city. I don't know what you would get. If they had another blackout that was similar to the one that they had in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But everybody was on their kumbaya. You know what I mean? Power was out in Manhattan. People were walking together. They're crossing the Brooklyn Bridge. They're out there making marshmallows in the streets. It was a very, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was also only like 3 or 4 days.
It was, but it was also post 9/11. The vibe in New York, everybody was a New Yorker.
Yes.
Everybody was American. Everybody, like that was a different kind of...
That was one thing that brought a lot of Americans together were, catastrophes like that and atrocities like that are what, bonds people. Right now, nobody wants us bonded.
I get it. But the unfortunate thing is, too, when it comes to this gun issue, for the most part in the U.S., the things that the folks on the far other side of the conversation, the anti-gun people, the things that they're witnessing are being committed by Americans. Do you know what I mean? And that, I think, is the other kind of cog in the wheel. And that's...
Again, we live in a democracy. Go by the percentages. No,
I'm just saying that's also part of the problem is that it's Americans committing these acts of violence. It's homegrown terror, as they like to call it.
I mean, are we going to stop selling fertilizer?
No, but it's also, but
I mean, Tim McVeigh took down an entire building. Are we going to stop selling fertilizer? That you could still make that exact thing that he used to
I get that, and I understand that. But
I
again,
mean, if someone wanted to take out a concert, that's what they would do.
Do you realize, though, in these conversations when we talk about these things, you have government organizations that look into it, but then certain things are being defunded. There's no trust left in it. And you go, okay, but in order to stop this, like the average American, Lenny, you have no clue what kind of letters are being sent to the State House, what's being sent to where. That is why we have the FBI and the ATF and the CIA, and we have these, who knows why we have the CIA, but you get my point. This is why we have certain governmental organizations. And as people like this gentleman say inflammatory things like what he's saying, while there is some merit and foundation to it, the more distrust you put in the government, the more likely you are to see things seep through the cracks, right? Because they're out here trying to put out the small fires amongst Americans.
You're fairly mid-left, and I'm fairly mid-right. You trust the government and what they do?
I think that there are some things that I don't need to know.
That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you
But those are the things.
If you trust that the representatives in our government are doing the right things for the people. Are they there for the people of the United States? That's the real question. Is that what they're looking at in their best interest?
Like, are you talking about Congress?
I'm talking about. I'm
not talking about
government
right now. I mean, I get that, but that's
everyone else. The FBI, CIA, they're all told what to do. They're soldiers.
They are soldiers.
They're soldiers, and
Lenny. But my point is, you know what? Why are we here? If I don't trust why do I live here? Why am I here? How can I call this the greatest country on earth if I don't trust my government, if I don't believe in what we stand for, if I think it's nothing but a bunch of shithead? That doesn't make sense. So you guys are a bunch of hypocrites if that's how you feel. If you have no trust in the government, you don't believe in what America stands for, you think everybody's a piece of shit.
That's not what I said.
Out to whatever.
America, I believe totally in what America stands for. We're going to what you were just saying, that the disparity in this country has become so far with the haves and the have-nots.
I get that, but guess what? If we devolve into anarchy, they're out. Those people are gone. They're living in their fucking bunkers 1,000 miles under the earth. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, but the haves are the people who are running this country. The haves are the people who are running
Listen,
this country.
You said you wanted to do this podcast so that we could find some middle-of-the-road shit. Every time we have this conversation, you start talking about shit I have no control over. You have no control over that. We can control the people that we put in those offices. Mm-hmm. We can control, to some degree, if it checks and balances. Look, you said you were going to run on this. So yes, I feel like we have the control. When you want to go hands off and woe is me, and that's the shit I'm talking about. Spurring all of this insightful, inflammatory rhetoric with no sort of course of action, all that does is get people worked the fuck up, and then they're sitting on a couch saying, do you trust the government? What has the government done to make me not trust them? I have a job.
Nothing.
No, I'm not saying that. I mean, I know certainly FDA. But again, this is all information I am armed with, right?
I feel you.
So that's the other part of this. Is again, it goes back to accountability. When we talk about history, this
I'll
gentleman
tell
right
you
here.
what should make you the ATF study that they do every 20 years. Yet guns are the biggest. But
that's Americans. That's Americans.
That's the government.
No. That's the government doing a study to appease Americans. This is something that we are fighting about. You think the government wants to have a conversation? They do it, like you said, because it's talking points for American people. Nothing has changed. Is it ever going to change? So again, as Americans, stop fighting about some shit that is not going to change, right? Like, it's protected in the Constitution. It is what it is. Again, maybe you'll get some limitations. Should there maybe be some more restrictions? Would I like to see a little bit more, I don't know, checks and balances? I would like to see people have to be licensed, gun owners, whatever. Or shit, fuck it, every American gets a gun. But that's the one you got.
Yeah.
That's the one you get.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
So at that point now it's, we got plenty of gun makers to make them. Maybe you get your choice. Do you want a Smith & Wesson? What do you want? It's your pick. Don't come complaining though if you don't like it after you get it.
That's a good solution.
But that to me is, it always comes back to accountability though. And it's like, we're armed with all this information. History repeats itself. Okay, well, read fucking history and then do something different. Like, it's not that we don't have the maps and the charts and the tools. We just choose to continue to sit here and spin our wheels. It's fucking maddening. It's
Yeah.
maddening that this is going to be an issue in 2024, and it's going to be an issue again in 2028 and in 2032. And again, at the end of the day, people will still have their guns, and people will still be mad that people have their guns, and the people with their guns will be mad because they don't have enough of their guns. You know what I'm saying? It's wild. Like, it's never fucking enough. Compromise, middle of the road is never enough, especially in this country, because we are gluttons with everything. We are big, petulant, spoiled children that want everything our way.
Well said.
We get nowhere. Except for
I don't really think that's true that we got nowhere. I mean,
everybody gets a gun.
Is
that manning the fuck? I think that is manning the fuck up.
it's-
Because then if you don't want it, you can say no. But now you don't get to complain.
Yeah.
You don't get to complain. We offered it
Yeah.
to you. You turned it down. It doesn't go to somebody else. But if you don't want it, you don't have to take it. But every American gets one. And then if you don't get it, shut up.
Yep. That makes sense. But then they're going to be like, why can't I have another? You know, that's where it goes to.
Have more kids. Look, you're helping with the population
Yeah,
and
we'll
all
fix
of
the
it.
population.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Honey, we need at least 2 more.
All right.
We need at least 2 more. The apocalypse is coming. Anyway.
So that was our good gun conversation. Fun
Comment?
stuff.
Comments, opinions, thoughts, insights, facts, good books on the argument, study. I don't care. All of it. Leave it in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, follow. Make sure you're on our social media, please. And we will see you next time right here on the ManTFup Podcast.
Peace.